Welcome to the Amazing Truth Podcast, a podcast where we focus on real issues and have real talk, and as always, provide a biblical perspective. We hope that you will be blessed as you listen.
Welcome to the second episode of Amazing Truth Podcast for 2021. This is the Amazing Truth Minute.
The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Today's Truth Minute comes to us from the book of Jeremiah chapter 18 verses 1. And it says, "The word which came to Jeremiah from the Lord saying, Arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I will cause you to hear my words." Life is a journey. Last week's Truth Minute podcast, we looked at Ecclesiastes chapter 3, where Solomon says there's a time and a season for everything. A time to heal, a time to play, a time to laugh, a season to harvest, time to plant, and so forth. And so, as we look at life, we may have become prisoners of our shame from what was done to us, what we are doing to others, or what we are not doing. True freedom will only come when we allow the truths of our lives to align with the public persona of who we are. Who we are in public should align with our private lives, failure to which our sins eventually will catch up with us, or we deny others the opportunity to share in your journey, to learn from your experience, to be comforted by your story, and as a result, to be uplifted. Today, it is a time for us to celebrate the journey that we have gone through. This is the Amazing Truth Minute.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back to the second episode of 2021. Again, in the house, we have the Obikoz. They were with us last time. If you have not listened to the last session, the last recording, please pause, rewind, and go back and listen to it first so that we can be able to pick it up where we left. As usual, my name is Ezra. I'm here as your host for today, and I'll let the Obikoz reintroduce themselves again to us one more time.
I'm Kenan.
Nancy Obikoz.
And we are past hosts of the Amazing Truth Podcast, and Nancy is my lovely wife.
Amazing. This time you went with Obikoz. Last time you went with Kenan and Nancy. So that is good. We are here again for those who are catching us. And in case you listened to the last episode and you want a refresher reminder, we have the Obikoz sharing with us their stories. Last week was amazing to learn about, their family, their marriage. But above all, the story that they shared with us, which they will continue sharing with us today, is about how they lost their three babies through miscarriage, and two through miscarriage and one through a stillbirth, right? And it was moving, inspirational, encouraging, and at the same time very informative, and showing God's grace through the journey so far. When we look at people, our friends, they smile, but you don't know what exactly they're going through. So I don't want you to hear much of my voice. We want to pick it up where we were last week. And I think just to set the tone from where we were last week, because you had lost the first child. You had two miscarriages within a span of maybe 3 months or less. And during that time, you started seeking for help. You've gone through all these doctors from Hennepin to, Fairview. You visited several hospitals, just to mention a few of them. And you found this doctor in St. Paul, who I think is the St. Paul doctor, right?
Minneapolis.
All right, the doctor in Minneapolis, now you had to go through. Take us the journey now. What was their treatment? What happens here? Where are we now? What's the story? And of course, in the last podcast, Nancy, you highlighted that you had fibroids, and maybe they're saying that could not be the cause, but they're still there. So tell us, refresh us a little bit, and then take us from there.
So the doctor we used to see at Fairview Bass Lake in Maple Grove referred us to this doctor at North Memorial Maternal Fetal Clinic. And that's because she looked at us and she was like, I really don't know what to do with you guys. Doctor's report says everything is okay, but you've had a stillbirth, you've had 2 miscarriages, but we really don't know what to do. So we were at a point of despair. Even the doctor herself was at a point of despair. And she was like, I don't know. So she was like, this is probably the last option. And we decided to go forth with it. And the moment we saw that doctor, his name was Dr. Phipps. He has since retired. I think he retired a couple months after we saw him. And the clinic has since been closed.
Oh, wow.
It was closed like a year after.
After you guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
Actually, I think a couple months after, because they sent us.
Perfect timing for you guys.
Yeah, it was actually real perfect timing.
God's timing.
God's timing. So Dr. Phipps, very old man, very knowledgeable, with an old man with a lot of wisdom. So he would look at you and you would think he sees through your soul.
He never used to say much. Actually.
Never used to say much. Just, lets you talk and, tell you what he's gonna do. And so we started, I think he just did blood work and he did the balloon test.
Yeah.
And that was it. And it was like, we just have to get this thing removed. Okay. Do you want to go forward with it? I said, yeah. If that's what you recommend, we're going to have it removed. And to make it clear, the reason we had not gone forward with the surgery before, when let's say we were at HCMC, is because they had said not to. They recommended not to do it. They said it's not causing any harm.
So Nancy, sorry to cut you. Fibroids, what are fibroids? There are people, some, especially us like men.
Yeah.
I don't want you to go into the specifics, the details, but just in a nutshell, in a one liner. And if you want to go through it, that's your story. I don't know why I'm telling you what to say and not what to say, but yeah.
So, and this is something I learned during this whole process. They are just growth that they grow in the uterine wall or in the uterus. They could be hanging. There could be many. They could be as big as basketball. They could be very tiny. They could cause lots of problems. Some of them can just stay there for years and years and not cause any problems. So in my case, the doctors were conflicted about it because it was in the uterine wall. Like it wasn't in the space of the baby. And I think the position also, no one really wanted to touch it because it was in a tricky area.
Yeah, they said it's in a tricky area. It won't affect your pregnancy, but it would affect, but we don't want to touch it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why even the doctor who came highly recommended at Health Partners, even him, he was like, I think it's okay, you just go and get pregnant. He didn't want to touch it as well. So when we met Dr. Phipps and he recommended it, and he was like, I have a partner. So there was 2 doctors at that clinic. The other doctor was Dr. Damario. So he recommended that his partner will do the surgery. So Dr. Phipps' job was to diagnose and Dr. Damario was to go forward with the surgery. And we were like, yeah, we're going to go forward with it. So, and Dr. Damario was fully booked. So this was, I think, sometime in fall, and the earliest we could get was February. So the earliest appointment we could get was February 4th, and we went forward with it. Now, the surgery itself was a whole other story, but we are so glad we went forward with it because, first of all, the surgery it took 6 hours, almost 8, because I went in at 7 and came out of the recovery room at 4. So Kenan was seeing me at 6 in the evening from early morning 7. And he was there alone until later, I think our best man joined him. Those kind of moments just make me feel so bad for him, like for putting him through all that. But he's been a great support system
Stop
through.
it.
And I'm laughing not because I'm not with you, but because I know this guy. You know, so
Yeah, so he was there the whole time, and they kept him updated and everything else. So, and the surgery was being done by a robot.
Laparoscopic surgery.
It was a
the
laparoscopic
laparoscopic.
surgery, but then with the help of a robot as well. So I was wheeled in. I saw this huge robot, and thankfully it was successful. And the doctor had told me, as soon as as soon as it's done, you're gonna feel like a whole new person. And actually, that's what I felt.
really.
And I think at that time, just the surgery system, the way they had, I think it was one of the new methods they were trying out. He mentioned something like that. It's a new method. They were so excited about it. So it turned out less invasive. She just had minimal scars, just 4 scars. So that helped too.
Yeah,
So they do surgeries with robots.
yeah,
Yes,
it was
yes,
done
yeah.
by a robot, huge one. So, and he had warned me. He told me you're gonna feel like a whole new person after during the recovery process. And trust me, I since that time I just feel like a whole new person.
Nice.
I
Can
feel
I
like-
say something though? About a whole new person, I think it kind of helped us to also look forward to what we want as well in terms of trying to get a baby, because I think it mentally it kind of freshened up our minds, and there was the fear kind of just went away for me at least. The fear of the past kind of went away because they seem so excited about it. And I think that's God too, because when they say a whole new person, I think we became a whole new people, and I think we looked forward to it. And even though we knew we might go through the same thing, we kind of had the strength to kind of say, if he comes, we'll take it. If he doesn't come, we'll so on.
And talk about God's timing. It was such a perfect timing because I had just started. I was still at the job I always had, prior to that, but the company had been bought by Johnson & Johnson. So the benefits were way, way better than
Nice.
before. So for short-term disability, I think I got 12 weeks
Oh, nice.
of recovery. And I think I extended it by another maybe 2 weeks or something like that. And it was 80% paid
Wow.
the whole time. So it was just God's timing.
I'm listening, going back to the previous episode where you had to quit your job,
Yeah.
and you're paying things from pocket, and then everything is starting to lighten up. There's a sense of light at the end of the tunnel from just listening to how this podcast has started. Let me follow up with a question of, what year is this? What year is this? Now, I remember the stillbirth is 2011.
Please look
I'm
at
not asking you,
Nancy.
You might say 2022.
It's 2014,
So-
February 4th.
And I asked that 2014, February 4th. You affirmed that.
Yeah, I affirmed
that. 2014. So that's around 3 years later since
Yeah.
your marriage.
Since 20, yeah.
Very
Right,
still
right.
young marriage, young couples. Everybody's looking at you. Oh, the new couples, now they need to have kids. How did you ever get any of those? When are you going to have a child? Did you get any stigma or community?
Yep. We got a lot of those. We would go to church, and having a stillbirth really put us, threw us out there in the limelight, like that couple who lost their baby through a stillbirth.
So that's how you are being
Yeah.
referred to.
Yep.
There's a stigma, even how it's not Nancy
It's a label.
Kenan.
Yeah,
it's a
it's a
label that
label.
you already
Yeah, it
had.
became a label. It became our identity, I would say. And
How did you guys
some
deal with
women
it?
would even come up to me and say, well, there was another lady who went through kind of the same thing like you, but she's now pregnant. What are you waiting for? But then
They didn't know the other
they
two
didn't know
small
the other-
miscarriages.
And we didn't tell
and the
them.
struggles as well that were coming along.
What would you
with it.
tell people who say those kind of things?
Just be.
And I think people mean well. I think it's not
Yeah.
like people are being like, how can we? Because also the other tricky part is where we push people away who really mean well.
Right.
What does that look like? How would you have wished people to empathize and sympathize with you in moments like those? I don't know if that's a hard question. I don't know.
It's not a hard question because first of all, it's real stuff. It's very real. It's what I yearned for someone to just come to me and ask me what's going on instead of just making assumptions. So I would say, ask me what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, in our community,
Don't assume.
Yeah.
Yeah, and marriage sometimes doesn't equate to children. So it's having children is not a stick that says that your marriage is
Not
good.
a measuring.
It's not a yardstick.
Not a yardstick.
That so children are a blessing, are an addition to what you already have. And I think don't assume that what are you waiting for? I could be waiting, but you don't know while I'm waiting what I'm going through. So again, children are not a yardstick of marriage, a successful marriage. And I just say be considerate. Be considerate of other people's feelings. And I know we're coming from a generation where some people don't care about that. The older generations, the old mamas would not. So yeah, just be considerate. And I don't know how.
But also, not bad, because I've not been there. But I feel like there's also the desires that you had yourselves, you know, and you're crying for that help, maybe intentionally or unintentionally, but then the way it's reciprocated, it's all more harmful or more hurtful than before. So I think stigma is real. Stigmatization is real. And if you're listening out there, please, including ourselves, we don't know what someone is dealing with. And that's why Truth Minute today, life is a journey. And we don't know where the molding process can be painful. How do we be gracious and work and help with each other? Sorry to take you out of context.
So it's
I was gonna
important.
add something
now.
to that. It's very important for people to understand like how to help. Like I remember in our situation, we had kind of just bottled up a lot of emotions that the two of us, we were a great support system for each other. But it reached a point where Kenan felt like he's not giving me all the help that I need. And I remember one time, we hadn't seen our best couple for many, many months maybe. And then one time we met somewhere at a funeral. And Kenan knew I was not going to open up. And the one thing he just did was just to call Jillian and say, come, here's Nancy. And the moment I saw Jillian, I just started crying. Like I just broke down. Like it was everything I had kept the whole time. She didn't know about the 2 miscarriages. So this whole time we were going through it by ourselves. Nobody knew. So I just broke down. And all she did was just listen to me and offer that shoulder. And that's what I needed.
Yeah.
And, you know, the whole process is a process of so many emotions. Like one time you could need a shoulder to cry on. The other time maybe you need someone to listen to you.
Yeah.
So I would say be that person who seeks to know what kind of help that person needs at that time. Because you might be offering
help, but in the wrong way at the wrong timing.
Yeah, because that's not what that person needs at that time, because it's, you know, it's a roller coaster of emotions, I would say.
Izzy, I want to say something though, to add to that. The reason why I said here is Nancy, as a spouse or as a partner, there's a level of support you can only give, and I know spouses are supposed to be that rock system, but there's a level of support that you can give your partner that it doesn't hit that spot. And for us, we were fortunate that it worked with Jillian. They were our best couple. But sometimes that's where professional help comes in. That's where you need to seek that professional help, where someone, a third eye, because I needed support, she needed support, but there's a level of support we can give each other. Because I can't be a therapist for my wife. She can be a therapist for me, although but it doesn't work that way. So that's why we need to seek that professional help.
And I think that's one thing that we need to talk, especially to the people listening out there, is that it is when you're seeking help, it doesn't mean that you're broken. It doesn't mean that you're sick. You know, it's you don't take your car for oil change because it's broken.
Yeah.
You know, it needs it to function. It's maintenance. So we are very good in maintaining our homes, our houses, our cars, but how do we maintain our emotions? How do we maintain our physical being as human, and our mental state? It also needs that maintenance. Let's get back to So you got the surgery, now you're feeling like a whole new person. You know, life is brighter for you, Kenan. You're seeing this hope, this light at the end of the tunnel. Of course, there was light, because now we know we have Nolan and Alani, right?
So I'll just do a preamble. So we the surgery went well. She healed, and we started trying, and we were blessed. I think not too long after we got pregnant with our daughter, our firstborn. And that's a whole, we were happy. We were in this space where now we're pregnant. This is what we wanted. But then now the stress. I know we were talking about celebration, but then the stress comes in now. What if? So I
every day is a celebration. Every day becomes a celebration.
You wake up, and if you hear a kick, you are happy. And I stressed her a lot. Let me own up. I kept asking her, did you hear the kick? Did you hear a kick? Did you hear this? Did the baby kick today? Have you had the baby in an hour? And later on, she told me, man, it was the hardest. That was that question was the hardest for her.
Nancy, how was that pregnancy now? On top of Kenan stressing you, how was that journey now?
The journey was a tough one, but let me backtrack a little bit and still go back to God's timing. Immediately after the surgery, I remember the doctor mentioning something like, it's good that they took the fibroid out, because I think because of the hormones, the pregnancies I had and the hormones fluctuating, the cells inside the fibroid had died.
Oh.
So eventually that wasn't going to be a good thing.
Be cancerous.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So he said it's good that they got the fibroid out in time. And then he also mentioned something like they saw a little bit of endometriosis, but he told me it's nothing to worry about. It wasn't at a level where I would be worried about. And he told me, just take your time, heal, and then come back. So we had a couple of other appointments now with the original doctor, Dr. Phipps. And he, like I said, he used to do the test by himself, the ultrasound. And once he was sure that everything is good, I've healed, he was like, now you're good. But as soon as you get pregnant, as soon as you do that test, come, give us a call and come to the clinic. And that's what we did. So as soon as 5 weeks pregnant, I was having ultrasounds.
Wow.
So, and the moment he saw the embryo sac and everything, he was happy. He told me to come back next week. So I started weekly appointments from as early as the day I knew I was pregnant, week 5. And once he was sure that everything was good, he referred me now to the regular high risk pregnancy clinic. So apart from that was a whole other stressful situation. But
which one? The high risk pregnancy?
Going to the high risk clinic weekly is also another.
And we lived in Plymouth, and it was in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
So I drive every Monday morning.
Because he had to make time for that every week to accompany me.
Yeah.
But I lost my job. Just a couple during the healing process and right before I became pregnant.
Don't feel sorry for her. It was a blessing.
That job that had
the
good benefits and insurance now is gone.
Yes. But then I had a job where my benefits now
his benefits were really good. So the short-term disability, we were using my short-term disability, but we were using his insurance, which was very good. So I lost my job and we were so devastated because, financially it meant a lot. But little did we know it was God's plan, because a month later I became pregnant. And I think God wanted me to stay home during the whole time and just rest. Because that pregnancy, I used to sleep a lot. I would wake up, I'd go to bed at 10 and wake up at 11. He would leave for work and leave me in bed. I would wake up at 11, have breakfast and go back to have a nap until like 3 p.m. when he's coming back home. I was so sleepy. So
You're so spoiled.
It was all God's plan. The whole pregnancy, the whole time.
So you needed that time. God's timing was perfect for you guys because there's no job that's going to allow you to sleep that much and keep your salary. And you know, did you have anything trauma from the previous 3 miscarriages? Would you ever wake up with fears or feel like?
Yep. So first of all, from the stillbirth, let me start with the first few weeks. So remember the 2 miscarriages, I had them very early. So the trauma for me was every time I'd go to the bathroom, I'd, just check to make sure everything is okay. No smear of blood or anything. And thankfully, there was none the whole time. And then now, once the baby started kicking,
Nancy, would you tell the story? Well, the story when we found out we were helping this friend move, and that's an interesting one.
So we were trying to have the baby, and so I had, tried to lose weight. I had cut out everything that would just make me, like meat and all that. So this particular time, I tested actually, and this is after the surgery, and the test was negative. Like the pregnancy stick showed negative. So I was so devastated. I told Kenan. Kenan, of course, was devastated as well. So Kenan's cousin was moving to Iowa. So he requested us to go help them move. But I accompanied him there. But I had this feeling not to lift, not to do anything heavy or just not to do anything crazy. So once we got there, he was doing all this stuff and I was just sitting down.
I'm the muscle.
And remember, I had tested negative. The test showed negative, and I started having like some cramps, but I didn't know it was implantation. And there was a little bit of smear, but brownish. But I knew like that was always the sign when it came to 5 weeks, 6 weeks. That's what always happened. So I was pretty sure it's another miscarriage. And remember, this is after the surgery. So we helped the cousin move. They left and came back home. But that night I was so much at peace. For one, I don't know why, but because I don't know, but I was so much at peace that night. Even after the day's events, like seeing the smear and the cramp. And from there, everything just kept going. And I remember even making that call to Dr. Phipps to tell him that, we think we are pregnant, but the test showed negative. So he said, just come in, let's see. How many days later? I think I said about 3 or 4. He was like, come. And for sure there was a baby, but the test at home showed negative.
Wow. So the test...
I think God was bringing us back to the agent he had sent to us.
Maybe they were faulty, like COVID tests. I'm just kidding. But just it's amazing to see that you're feeling your body, you're feeling like, I'm pregnant, but the test is showing negative. You're not pregnant. And based on your instinct, you call your doctor, and that goes to show that you are actually pregnant. I think we're going to take a break here shortly. Let's take a break so that we can come back and do the next part as we finish.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at The Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. Again, as those who are tuning in right now, we're going on with our series brought to us by the Obikoz on their journey on, their journey Yes, I don't even actually
I
know
don't
what the
know,
journey
yeah.
is, but on that journey.
I don't even know the topic.
But again, their journey, their story that they're sharing. And I wanted to highlight, because one of the things that we've been talking about is support systems for people who are going through that. There's one group that is called Waiting Womb Trusts, and this group is actually based in Kenya for those who are, have ties and roots. But they also have a social media platform on Facebook and other places where they have people from all over the world. I think they have around 8,000 women and community members, and been there for a couple of years now. The founder went through that. Her name is Edita. Please, if you have time, you can check Waiting Womb Trust. Inbox them; they're very quick in responding, because I know people who have done that and they've received, and they can always connect you to some support system wherever you are. So if you're here listening to this story, and even if you're not going through these and you want to just hear what other people are going through so that you can be a support system, please be sure to tune. And of course, the Obikoz, that's what they're sharing this story. So check us out in our social media handles. Facebook, Instagram, email us. The handles are Amazing Truth Podcast at gmail.org for the website.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
All right, welcome back. So Nancy and Kenan, they have visited their specialist after the feeling is we're pregnant, but the test is faulty. How was the pregnancy, the two pregnancies in general? Were there complications? How was that journey?
Apart from the stress of and the fear of losing another one, I think the stress, she had just minimal complications. For the first pregnancy, I think, let me talk the second. The second is the most recent I can remember. There was blood pressure issues. It wasn't as bad. It wasn't as bad.
So you think the healing,
emotional stress,
the fibroids may be complete. The treatment before maybe
might have helped. Yeah,
might have helped.
Apart from the physical stress, the emotional stress of the pregnancy, I think, is what took a toll on us. That's the fear.
Okay. Nancy, how was it?
And the many doctor visits that we had to make. At some point, it was even up to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
An ultrasound every week, just to make sure that the baby is okay. And thereafter, seeing our primary OB. But they took good care of us.
Yeah, and the reason I'm saying
very good hands.
they were not too bad. I think it's because we didn't care. Even if they say this clinic is in Wyoming, we would have gone.
And
so
we had a good team.
Yeah, we had a good team. We were in good hands. I think God gave them to us specifically for us, and we did not. That's why we didn't see it as difficult, because
So today you're proud parents of Nalani and Nolan. How was that feeling of beholding your child, knowing what you had gone through? How was that feeling?
Well, for Nalani's situation was a little bit different because she was born a preemie.
Okay. So that's another...
both our kids. Yes.
Yeah, both were preemies, but for Nalani, she had to go to the NICU for... We didn't know, at the time, we didn't know for how long, but... Well, we went in for our checkup as usual, and we knew it was our last checkup. And the moment the ultrasound lady did the ultrasound, we could just tell from her face that something is wrong. And I hated the ultrasounds because of what I had gone through the first time, because that's when I had learned that I had lost my baby. So I don't like ultrasounds at all.
So a little background, Nancy. Since we were high risk, it was a high risk pregnancy. We used to go every Monday or every week. And then they do a stress test. So the baby has to pass the stress test. I think there are 5 pointers they look at: kicking, breathing, playing. So that particular Monday was the last Monday, and then we have a scheduled C-section the next Monday for birth. So this was immediately after our baby shower. We went to the next Monday. So she failed the test, meaning she didn't hit the threshold that they want. So they told us. So they kept us there. They put her on a machine to monitor the whole process. She kind of felt I think she failed.
Then they referred us back to our doctor. The doctor put us in a different machine.
Oh yeah, yeah. So we sat there for about 4 hours. I don't think she passed.
No, she failed again.
She failed. And now, of course, we are scared. I don't want to minimize this, but it was scary. It was very scary. Like, okay, deja vu again. But so then they told us we have to get this baby out, and then now it hits you. They're not getting a baby out to give to someone. They're getting a baby out for yourself. Now the king, instead of a parent, now I'm gonna be a parent in the midst of all those stress. So they did that.
And they also told us, because she's a preemie, she's coming even earlier than we thought.
Yeah.
She will have to go to NICU.
Yeah.
And we don't know what to expect. So that also was very stressful. But we were happy.
We were happy.
You were happy at least there's a baby.
At least there's a baby that they're caring for.
And I'm at the hospital being monitored.
Yes, and I'm at the
But then at the same time, that joy of holding, but wow. I mean, even when you think that now we are almost there.
Yeah.
You guys it seems like you are always on the edge. Any change of something small will trigger you guys and, bring all the trauma back and everything else. So how long were they? So we sat there the whole day, and then so they finally took the baby out, and then she couldn't, her breathing wasn't as good.
Know you were there.
It was. So this is my story. So the baby came out healthy, cried the first time. Who peed on? She peed in.
Yeah,
Nalani.
Funny, interesting thing is when Nalani was removed from my tummy, the moment she came out, she peed.
She peed back into it because the tummy was open, so she peed. But then they took her. They asked me to come, and they were so calm, so collected. They told me to come cut the umbilical cord. I mean, it's an amazing feeling. Like you wanted an intimate feeling, but you're saying, cut this. So they cut that. They took the baby. They tried to her breathing. They saw her numbers were up, are not good, but they let me hold her for a little bit. I think I brought. We brought
just
it to just to look. So she looked, and then they just took her into NICU. So because her breathing wasn't.
So you guys went in for checkup.
Yeah,
but you left with a baby.
We left. We didn't live with a baby.
We didn't live, but you
she was born that day. So they took her.
How she was born. We were not. You know how people say, "I'm packing my hospital." We didn't have none of that.
Yeah, we said we'll pack that week because then it was the next Monday. So we said this week we'll pack a hospital bag, so that when we go,
How long before she came home?
10 days. She was born March 15th. But 10 days felt like a year, Ezra. Felt like a year. So she was in the NICU. Remember, you hold her for a little bit and you bring her back. And so she was there for 10 days. She had to start breastfeeding. So I used to run. Then she needed the milk. So I used to run, pump, take the milk down there. And
around the clock, every 3 hours.
Every 3 hours. I lost weight, bro.
That was good exercise. That's good exercise.
Yeah. So 10 days, and by God was gracious to us, and I don't want to minimize this because there were babies in there who needed that help, and they were in different situations. Yeah. So we thank God that the Nalani wasn't that she needed the help, but not as much. So we usually prayed for those. And we said we'll go back and just volunteer because it's amazing what those nurses do. That God has blessed
and
those
the parents go
and what the parents go through. Because then you have to sit there. We told there was a baby has been there for almost 6 months.
Wow,
has grown. They tell you she was this small. They were this small. Now you see the baby in the So there's So she was there for 10 days. Then we brought her home.
All right. Nolan, different.
He was.
Nolan's. So for Nalani, the birth is what was difficult. But for Nolan, it's the pregnancy that was difficult. I think because of what we had gone through with Nalani, now I went into that paranoia, anxiety mode. And I ended up, from day one, with high blood pressure. And thankfully, my doctor was on top of the game, and I was put on medication immediately. But now the problem was, they said that for our pregnant mother who has high blood pressure, the babies tend to be smaller in the tummy, like when they're still in the tummy. So they used to monitor that, the growth of the baby every week, sometimes up to 2 times.
Weekly visits again.
Yeah, and actually for Nolan it was worse because of his growth. And they would measure the baby. I remember one time the ultrasound lady did a mistake, and I don't know, I think she was using a different machine, and the measurements came back a little bit different. And from there the doctor was like, nope, you have to come back 3 times a week, and if the baby is not growing, we have to take the baby out. And I went into panic mode, and the anxiety, people talk of anxiety, I don't know. Anxiety is so bad. I remember, like, that alone just used to make my blood pressure go up.
Just thinking about
it. But so the next time, I remember going into the clinic for another ultrasound, and our OB, who is very good, snuck around the corner to come and talk to the ultrasound lady, because she knew we were going to be there at a certain, I think it was 11 in the morning. And just to come and give a personal message, like, make sure you do a good job. And it really touched me, like, to have a doctor who just, leaves whatever she's doing to come and talk to the ultrasound lady to make sure she's doing, because she knew how much those things would affect me. And thankfully everything turned out fine, and the growth was okay, even though Nolan was still born smaller, but at least the growth was consistent.
I mean, he was born 18th of April, and then so we expected to be in the NICU for another whatever amount of time.
This time we were prepared for NICU.
So this guy is born a month prior, or was it?
Yeah, for him it came at 36 weeks.
36 weeks, yeah. So
and
4 weeks.
35.
Yeah, so 4 weeks. And so we expected to be in the NICU for whatever time.
Because of the the growth.
Yeah, he's small, he needs to feed, he needs to get big. So he was born, and then we were in the hospital for a day.
Oh wow.
With a C-section.
Wow.
Even the doctor was like, he's never seen anything like that.
The boy came out fighting.
We came out fighting, and and we had this they had just completed a renovation of the hospital, so it was a really nice room. And we said,
you were ready to stay.
we were ready to stay. Like, this is it's a new room. They just opened this wing, so even if it's 10 days, we got this. It's new. Yeah, he came. He was healthy. One day, I think.
Yeah, one day with a C-section,
and we came back.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So God,
Nancy and Kenan, God is amazing.
Yeah,
it truly is.
I think, just first of all, it's a great honor to have you guys share these for the first time. You said you've never shared it with anyone else. The courage, the story, and people don't understand when they see Nolan and see Nalani, the story behind that. But that's why the text we read today say that we are being molded. It's a journey. Your story is a journey. Yeah. What will you tell people out there that are going through this journey? What would you tell them? Like, what would be your word of encouragement?
From our story, I would say that God's timing is the best, and God is letting you go through that because He knows you are capable to handle that. And your womb is not. It's a waiting womb. I like that because your story is not done yet. Your family is not done yet. And if God chooses that is not your cup to have children, take it with grace. I think it's hard to say that, but I think God wants you to know that is what He has apportioned you. That is your portion, and He knows that you'll take care of that. And I want to say to those people also who have gone through this, you have a story, and your story is unique, and your story is special. God gave you that special story, and He knows who you are. He knows why you went through that, and take heart and help another person.
Before Nancy goes in, I want to just say this. It's not mine to say, but I will say that shout out to the pastors Manene and Mukua, to the best couples, your best couples, to the friend in Canada, and many other friends who are there with you guys through thick and thin, like the friend in Canada doesn't know how much she contributed because she had been through this story. So I pray that someone listening to this podcast, you will find a friend in this podcast. You might not even necessarily call, but you'll find a friend that you can go replay when you're down and low, and maybe going through that journey. Or if you know someone who's going through that, please share this with them to let them know that people have gone through this and one way or another they've come out of it. So I felt like it's important to give those Etienne and Vinny, those guys who came and spoke to you guys.
It's not just the people we've mentioned. There's many other people we haven't mentioned who came through for us during different times. Immediately after, we had the stillbirth, we had people come and help us cook, people come and do shopping for us. One of them literally lived with us for like 2 or 3 weeks, taking care of me. So we don't take it for granted. I always remember those people. I pray for them, and I know that wherever they are, God knows what they did for us, and God will reward them in numerous ways. I even remember one person who I don't know how she used to know, and that's the time Kenan didn't have a job, and I was still on a break. And at one point, you know how you don't have money to buy like food, and she would bring exactly what we needed. Exactly, from salt to...
I'm telling you, as to the T.
To the T.
Like what?
And she did that 2 or 3 times. So,
wow.
I mean, there's a lot of people, if you were to mention it, would be...
So in all fairness, we're not saying that the names that have been mentioned are the only names. There are many people, I believe, in your lives who are there and
still are
in your lives. Now, do you guys realize one thing, that Nolan and Alani are going to hear this podcast one day?
I just thought about that.
We've been sharing with them. They know bits and pieces. They talk about their brother a lot.
Okay.
And because we named him, his name is Nigel. They know. And
oh, really?
Nalani says we are 3. She doesn't know about the miscarriages, but she knows about the brother, and they talk a lot about it.
Nice.
And we have a tree planted in his honor, and they talk about that tree. And we don't want his memory to fade, because he's part of us.
So
he changed us forever.
He did, and then we still have those the pictures that we took. I know eventually we'll get the courage. And God has opportuned a time when we'll be able to look at those pictures if He wants us to. But I want to look at them. They're not bad memories at this point. They're good milestones in our journey, and I think those that's the moment where I think it shaped who we are.
Okay, we want to bring these to an end, but I want to finish on it. Nancy, parting. What will you tell people out there who are going through this, and then we'll have a segment to finish this.
So I want to go back to the Bible, Joshua chapter 4, verse 7 to 8, where Joshua was instructed to build a memorial of stones, right? The stones, he was to get them right from the middle of the Jordan River, where the priest was standing with the Ark of the Covenant. And I just want us to remember that God's goodness in our lives. It's so hard to go through a hard time and think of it as God's plan, but it's all in God's perfect timing and God's perfect plan for our lives. So at this moment, I just want to remember His goodness of where He's brought us from and where He's taking us. We're not saying that life is easier or it's going to be easier, but we want to pray, trust, and believe that we as a couple, or even myself, because I've had people come to me when they're going through such situations, like maybe they're trying to conceive and it's so hard, and we've prayed together. And we just want to be that person that people can come to and share their story, or offer that shoulder to cry on, or just a word of encouragement, wherever it is that people need, in our own small way.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I want us to finish, but I want to finish on this note. What message do you have for Nolan and Alani?
So
And this one you are not prepared for.
No, yeah.
So
I to them, to all our kids, those that we could have had, and those that we have. I'm speaking to those that we have, Nolan and Nalani. You've made our lives much more happier and you've added happiness to what we already had. And watching you grow, watching you hit your milestones, even though you didn't have a head start, you started very, very low, with low milestones, and you're on the percentiles graphs, you are still down there. But over time, you've showed us that you can conquer everything, even if you don't have a head start. So you don't need a head start to be great. You just need to measure up your courage, measure up whatever God has leveled you with, whatever God has given you. That is what He wants you to use. So don't expect to run fast like Usain Bolt, or run longer than all this. Yes, you just need to measure up whatever you have, because God has given you that so that you can be great. And greatness, seek your greatness from the Bible. Seek your greatness from the book, the Word of God. The world will give you measures of greatness. The world will give you, this is great, this is what we define as great. But the Bible is your measure of greatness. Seek the Word of God to show you what that greatness looks like. And we love you and we really appreciate you.
I wasn't prepared for this, but
I know.
Let me see. To Nalani, you proved against all odds, and we call you our champion for a reason, and that's why you run the fastest. But I want you to remember that running fastest doesn't mean that you can reach your destination first, but it doesn't mean that you've won. So put God first, trust and believe that He has you in His hand. To Nolan, you bring so much joy in our lives, and you proved over and over again that the sleepless nights I used to have mean a lot, and you're just a joy to behold. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm excited about this podcast because they will listen to this one day, whether they understand today or not, but they will listen to this. But I want to finish by saying this to all of you who are listening. We want to say thank you so much, the Obikoz, for sharing with us your story. Thank you for walking us through the journey. It's not over; it's still going. But this one chapter that you finished, we pray for the next chapter. I feel impressed to leave you guys with this text that I was reading. As you're sharing your story, I kept on reflecting and relating to it. Is the story of Samson? In the book of Judges, chapter 13 in the Bible, and Samson is his parents cannot have. The Bible says actually in Judges chapter 13, the Bible says that in verses, I'm reading verses 3, and the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, indeed now you are barren and have borne no children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. The angel of the Lord appeared and said this to this woman. You can imagine the joy of a woman hearing that. And then it says, verses 4, now therefore, please be careful not to drink wine or similar drink, and not to eat anything unclean. For behold, you conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head, for this child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. And to both of you, there is no child who comes from God with no manual. You buy a car, it comes with a manual. You buy something, it comes with a manual. Before even Samson was born, God has already destined him to deliver the children of Israel from the hands of the Philistines. He's not born because God has no idea. It's because God has a purpose for this child. That is why He allows this child to be born. There is no oops baby. There is a purpose for that child. we may make mistakes, but that doesn't mean that that child has no purpose in this life. So as parents, my prayer for you all is that you will find the purpose of these children, because it will be upon you to guide Nolan and Alani to discover those purposes. And as they do that, there will be powerful life changes in this world. So thank you again for sharing with us. Amazing Truth Podcast. We told you 2021 is going to be on fire. And we've started on that note. Tune in next week as we come in with another powerful story, as we share another journey. There's a word that was mentioned by Nancy called endo. Come next week so that we can learn what that means as we build in this story. Thank you so much again, the Obikoz Amazing Truth Podcast. Hit us up in our handles on social media, Instagram, Facebook, email, amazingtruthpodcast@gmail, and amazingtruthpodcast.org. Leave us a comment. We love you and thank you for tuning in.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Amazing Truth Podcast. We hope you were blessed as you listened. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. God bless you, and see you on the next one.